Hey guys! So today I wanted to film part 2 of my 15 and pregnant teen mom story. So that video ended up trending or something because it had tons of comments. It had, I think, 400,000 views, which I was not expecting. And with a lot of views with a trending video come a lot of hate comments, come a lot of questions. So I'm not going to address the hate today, but I do want to answer some of your questions that you left on that video. So let's just get into it. So before I get into your questions, I just want to address a couple things. Did I say addressed? Address a couple things. There are several comments on my video about the section in the video where I talked about wanting to die, how I didn't want to have this baby, blah, 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 which was all true at the time. Clearly not now. But I got a lot of hate for that. People were saying, oh, you don't want your child, you don't love your child. I would hate for your child to watch this video and see that he was unwanted and he's not loved and blah, blah, blah. Shut the That's how I feel, okay? I was narrating the story of when I was 15 and pregnant. 15 and pregnant. Clearly I'm not 15 and pregnant anymore and everything has changed. But I feel like people hold that against me, that I said that. You know, those were just my feelings at the time when I was 15. Say it with me, 15. Now, what 15-year-old finds out they're pregnant and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. I wanted this baby. I can't wait to be a mom at 15 or 16. Oh, yay. Ha. No one. Like, those were my true feelings. I wasn't going to sugarcoat it. If a girl is going through the same thing, currently watching that video, I don't want her to be like, oh my gosh, this girl is just so happy, but I don't feel that way. I want her to know the truth. And that was my truth. Clearly, my son is loved. We are happy. That was when I was 15. Way more to my 15 and pregnant story. And if you pick out that little piece of information that I said and just that's all you think about when you watch that video, then you've got issues. Okay, first question. Does your son call your husband dad? No. So I introduced my son to my now husband when he was 4 years old. He was in preschool. I actually waited 7 months before I introduced my son to my now husband. I wanted to make sure, you know, that he was the right one. I didn't want to be bringing in all these random guys into my son's life. I've seen people do that. It's not good for the kid. My mom did that a lot, and yeah, just I didn't want to repeat what my mom did, so I wanted to make sure he was the right one. So no, my son calls him Gerard, which is my husband's name. He does not call him dad. He will say stepdad sometimes, but yeah. Next one. Did you have more kids or plan to? Just curious. If that's too personal of a question, I understand. It's not too personal. I did not have any more kids. I only have one kid. I do have pet children. I have 2 dogs, a cat, and 4 chickens, but no other kids. Just my son. Answer only if you're comfortable. I'm not comfortable. But what kind of relationship do you have with your son's father now? I would say we have a pretty decent relationship. Are we best friends? No. Do I call him up and I'm like, hey, how was your day? What have you been doing? Do you want to go out to dinner? No. I would say our relationship is cordial. We get along for the most part. There are days where we butt heads, but we have gotten so much better throughout our 11-year relationship of having a child together. The beginning was really hard when we broke up. We fought all the time. We didn't get along. We're much more mature now. You know, we figure things out. We talk about it. Communication's key and everything's good. Someone said, judgment, but if you didn't want a baby, then why didn't you have an abortion? I am pro-choice. Or give the baby up for adoption. Or you should have been on birth control. Judgment. Just asking. So there was obviously a reason I didn't talk about adoption or abortion, mainly because those are very, very controversial topics. You know, as soon as someone talks about it, someone's like, ah! And I didn't want that, which honestly, I probably could have talked about it because so many people left me hate comments in that video, so I wouldn't have noticed. But yeah, so adoption. I thought about adoption and I thought about abortion. My dad actually knew a couple that was looking to adopt and had a conversation with me about adoption. I knew right away I couldn't do adoption. You know, having to give up my child, having to just go through that whole process. I knew it would just be mentally and just emotionally draining, and I couldn't do it. I was not strong enough to do that. I knew that I would want a relationship with that child, and I just, I couldn't do it. So adoption was a pretty easy one for me. Abortion. So I heavily researched abortion from early on in the pregnancy to like the middle of the pregnancy. I was looking up abortion. I looked up YouTube videos. Actually, was YouTube popular back then? Yeah, I think YouTube was popular back then. I want to say I looked at YouTube videos. I looked at some type of videos. I looked at stuff on Google. I researched the hell out of abortion. I looked up all the different stages that you could have an abortion. I looked up when a baby was technically a baby. You know, when did the baby start breathing? When did it have brain activity? All of that stuff. I looked up, I researched it. And after watching some of those videos, I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way that I could do that. I couldn't. I know people that have gotten an abortion, and I know that they live with that regret. And I knew it would be too hard on me. I didn't want to go through with it. That's why I didn't do adoption, didn't do abortion. I knew, you know, it was my fault. And honestly, I'm a firm believer, if God brings you to it, He will bring you through it. Everything happens for a reason. And that was just engraved in my head. We go back and forth all the time on if I want kids or not. But then I think about my husband, and I just think we would have the cutest babies together. My husband has the cutest little nose. He has big juicy lips. Like, with my big eyes, this baby would be so cute. So I think about that and I'm like, But then I also think like, oh my gosh, I have to start over again. I already have an 11-year-old. The age gap is gonna be huge, but I know it's worth it. Children are worth it. So I'll probably have more kids. Someone said, do you think you're going to tell your kids as they get older the consequences of having sex at a young age and tell them your story? Absolutely. Absolutely. My son definitely knows my story, kind of. He knows that I was a young mom, that it was a struggle, but I will 110% have that talk when he is old enough to have that talk. I think all parents should have that conversation with their children. I never had that conversation with my parents. I never got the birds and the bees talk, none of that. And I think if I would have been more informed and aware of just sex and pregnancy and the consequences, and things probably would have been different. Alright, so someone said, I know this is very personal, so I definitely don't expect an answer. Well, you're getting one. But how is your son's relationship with his dad today? Just literally with his dad all the time. He loves his dad. They have a really good relationship. Someone said, you didn't mention your son's dad a lot. What? I can't read that. You didn't mention your son's dad a lot. Where was he while you were going to school and pregnant and hiding the pregnancy? Well, he was right there with me. I mentioned him a lot because I didn't feel like I should, you know. Like, if he wants to tell his story, then go for it, but I don't feel like I should do that. All right, so we have a question here. Thank you for sharing. Props to you for going through that in school. If it's not too personal to ask, did you always use protection? No. So I wasn't on birth control. We did not use condoms. I know there are tons of ways to protect yourself out there. I was not aware of like half of them. You know, we did practice safe sex, or I should say safe sex, by doing the PO method, but as we know, that didn't work out. All right, Jessie says, wow, this was inspiring to watch. Just a curious question. How is your relationship with your son, with your dad now? Did he accept the pregnancy eventually? So yes, my relationship with my dad is great. I am the baby of the family, so he did come around. It was very hard for him at first, but my son is the only grandchild of my dad's side of the family, so he's very loved. My dad had 3 girls. He wished that I was a boy, but I wasn't. So when he got a grandson, he was thrilled. He loves my son so much. They have a great relationship, and yeah, he came around very quickly. Someone said, what about birth control? Obviously, like, I know I should have been on birth control, but I wasn't. I'm just a bit confused about the full-time thing, because isn't full-time work 40 hours a week, and full-time classes is like at least 4 classes, which you can take up to 12 hours a week, plus at least a few hours of homework, and then having a child on top of that. Is that even possible? LOL. Right? It's possible. Let me tell ya. So during this time, I was selling insurance and I was going to school full-time. So I worked 40 plus hours a week. Sometimes I would work like 55 to 60 hours a week, which was during like our busy selling season. I actually took online classes for like the first 2 years of college. Was it 2? Yeah, first 2 years of college I went on campus, but then that was just too hard. I would take evening classes and it was a lot to handle, so I just switched to online classes, and I took 4 classes a semester, and it was extremely tough. I would literally do all my homework when my son fell asleep, when I should have been sleeping too because I had to wake up and go to work, but I would just find time to do my homework. And it was rough. You know, I would spend my weekends doing my homework. I would have family members watch my son just so I could get my homework done. And I'm so glad I did, because it all paid off. So it is possible. Just, you know, you have to figure out what works best for you and what you can handle. Leah says, when I hear and see about teen pregnancies, I always wonder if mother talks about contraception. Right? So I actually lived with my dad, and I would see my mom maybe like once a month. Honestly, I did not enjoy going to my mom's. I was a daddy's girl. I wanted to stay at my dad's house. I would throw a fit when I would have to go to my mom's house. I wasn't a big fan of her husband, and I did not enjoy going over there. Never thought to have that conversation with me, and my dad would have never had that conversation with me. My dad was extremely strict, you guys.
Which is probably part of the reason I got pregnant, because I was like, I'm rebelling.
So my dad was the type of dad, this is like back when cell phones weren't like popular, right? So we just had landlines. And my dad, I would like talk to boys on the landline, and I would stretch the cord, because you know the phone was on a cord, and I would stretch the cord outside so that my dad wouldn't hear me talking to boys. But my dad would hear me talking to boys, because he would get on the other line and he would pick up and hold his hand against the microphone of the phone and listen to all my conversations with boys. And then he would get on and say, Lainey, I need to use the phone, just so I wouldn't have a conversation with the boys I was trying to talk to. He did that all the time, every time. My dad would not let me have boys. He would not let me have boys over. He did not think that, you know, I had friends that were boys. He just, like, I'm telling you guys, he was strict. it's crazy because I look back now at everything that I've been through and went through, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, how did I do it? It's unreal. I'm glad that I held on to my faith and I trusted God, and everything worked out. Clearly, everything worked out. I'm here today talking to you guys, and you know, I'm just so lucky and blessed that things turned out the way that they did. And I honestly wanted to do my 15 and pregnant original story just to, you know, help others that might be going through the same thing I was going through, or to help others just relate to a hard situation, relate to a struggle, you know, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. It may not seem like it, but there is. Things do get better over time. You know, you just have to hold on to your faith and stay strong and believe in yourself, and you'll get through it. So hopefully this video gives you more insight on my 15 and pregnant story. If you have any more questions, maybe that I didn't answer in this video or in my original one, then let me know in the comments below and I will respond back to you guys, because I do want to make sure, you know, everyone's questions are addressed. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Mwah!